Hi. Hello. Thank you for watching. Um, Sorry for the lack of uploads. I've been quite busy, and so I'm going to try and make these at least once every 5 days or so, maybe once a week, but no guarantees. Um, yeah, it's just been quite busy, and so sorry about that, but I will try and focus on this more. Another thing too, I noticed that my voice, listening to recordings, that I stumbled on a lot of words, and so I'll be trying my best to not stutter as much. But thank you for your patience to anyone who has listened. I'm sorry about that. I will definitely try and work on that in the future. But without further ado, here's the section on Anaximander, who is the second philosopher in our series on early Greek philosophy. So here's the synopsis by Johnathan Barnes that he gives for the chapter, or sorry, for the fragments. Um, Anaximander was certainly a full-blooded physicos, and he certainly spoke of the principle of arche for all natural things. Um, just a reminder from the introduction, in case you forgot, arche is the sort of first principle, like it's the first sort of reminder, or sorry, not reminder, the first principle by which we derive everything else. And so, like, if you want to think about it, you can think of it like how addition, lies the basis for multiplication, and multiplication lies the basis for algebra, and so on. Or sorry, that that doesn't quite make sense. You can think of it as like sort of how addition was the basis for multiplication, and then like how the sort of idea of variables applies to things like functions. And so, yeah, hopefully that sort of makes sense, in case you forgot. But yeah, at any rate, I'm sorry, back to the text. It certainly spoke of the principle or arche of all natural things, but he did not identify this basic principle with any familiar sort of stuff. The arche was described simply as the infinite in extent and also indefinite in its characteristics. From this infinite, the familiar stuffs of the world, earth, air, water, and so on, were generated by a process in which the twin notions of heat and cold played some part. The generated stuffs encroach on one another and have in the course of time to pay compensation for their injustice. We may think of the alternating encroachments of summer and winter, of the hot and dry, and the cold and wet. Thus, the world is law-governed. Anaximander also gave a detailed account of natural phenomena. The two most uh, the two most remarkable features of his account lie in biology, where he speculated on the origins of mankind, in astronomy, where he developed an ingenious account of the celestial system and offered the suggestion that the Earth remains unsupported in mid universe because it is equidistant from every part of the outer heaven. And that sort of sums up the text. And so yeah, so that's the synopsis, and so here's the fragments. All right, here is part uh 3 of the text. Anaximander. Here's another short biography. Anaximander, like Thales, came from Miletus. Polydorus of Athens says in his chronicles that he was 64 in the second year of the 58th Olympiad, which is around 547 to 546 BC, and that he died shortly afterwards. That's according to Diogenes Laertius in his Lives of the Philosophers. Note, if Apollodorus is right, Anaximander was born in 610 BC and died in about 540 BC. Unlike Thales, he wrote a book, which was later in circulation under the title On Nature. He also produced a star map and a map of the world. Anaximander of Miletus, a pupil of Thales, was the first man bold enough to draw the inhabited world on the tablet. After him, Hecataeus of Miletus, a great traveler, made it more accurate so that it was greatly admired. That's from Agathermus from his geography. And here's another note. The leading ideas of Anaximander's work on nature are summarized by a late lexicographer as follows. Quote, Anaximander was a pupil of Thales. Anaximander, a son of Praxiades, a Milesian, he said that a certain infinite nature is first principle of all things that exist. From it come the heavens and the worlds within them. It is eternal and ageless, and it contains all of the worlds. He speaks of time, since generation and existence and destruction are determinate. Anaximander said that the infinite is principle and element of all things that exist, being the first to call it by the name of principle. In addition, there is an eternal motion in which the heavens come into being. According to him, the earth is aloft, not supported by anything but resting where it is because of its equal distance from everything. In shape, it is rounded, circular, like a stone pillar. On its surfaces, we stand on one, while the other is opposite. The heavenly bodies come into being as a circle of fire, separated off from the fire in the world and enclosed by air. There are certain tubular channels or breathing holes through which the heavenly bodies appear. Hence, eclipses occur when the breathing holes are blocked, and the moon appears something waxing and sometimes waning according to whether the channels are blocked or open. The circle of the sun is 27 times greater than the earth, and the circle of the moon 18 times greater. The sun is highest, the circles of the fixed stars lowest. Animals come into being from moisture evaporated by the sun. Humans originally resembled another type of animal, namely fish. Winds come into being when the finest vapors of air are separated off, collect together, and move. Rain comes from vapor sent up by the things beneath the sun. Lightning occurs when the wind breaks out and parts the clouds. He was born in the third year of the 42nd Olympiad, or 610 or 609 BC. That's from Hippolytus, from the Refutation of All Heresies. And then here's a second report. Anaximander, an associate of Thales, says that the infinite is the universal cause of the generation and destruction of the universe. From it, he says, the heavens were separated off, and in general all the worlds infinite in number. He asserted that destruction, and much earlier, generation occur from time immemorial, all the same things being renewed. He says that the earth is cylindrical in shape, and is a third as deep as it is broad. He says that at the generation of this world, that which is productive from the eternal of hot and cold separated off, and from it a ball of flame grew round the air about the earth, like bark on a tree. When the ball burst and was enclosed in certain circles, the sun and the moon and the stars came into being. Further, he says that originally humans were born from animals of a different kind, because the other animals can soon look after themselves, while humans alone require a long period of nursing. That is why, if they had been like this originally, they would have not survived. That's from Plutarch and Miscellanies. And then here's another note. Anaximander's most striking thoughts concern biology, astronomy, and the conception of the infinite. In biology, the remarks of Hippolytus and Pseudo-Plutarch can be backed out by three further texts. Quote, Anaximander says that the first animals were born in moisture, surrounded by prickly barks. As they grew older, they emerged onto drier parts. The bark burst, and for a short time they lived in a different kind of life. Just another note, these texts are are quoted as being from Plutarch, and Plutarch is quoted as being pseudo-Plutarch, which means that he could have been a person who was not Plutarch, who was taking his name in order to get more fame in the circulation of these books. That was a very common practice back in the ancient world, and yeah, just for the information that might be relevant. So another quote, Anaximander of Miletus says he thinks that from hot water and earth there arose fish or animals very like fish, that humans grew in them, and that the embryos were attained inside to puberty, whereupon the fish-like animals burst in men and women, emerged already able to look after themselves. And that's from Censorius on birthdays. It's kind of funny. But at any rate, here's the next text. That the descendants of old Helen actually sacrificed to Poseidon, the ancestor, believing that men grew from the most substance, from the moist substance, as do the Syrians. That is why they revere fish as being of the same species and the same nurture as themselves. Here their philosophy is better than that of Anaximander, for he says not that fish and men were born in the same surroundings, but that at first men came into being inside fish and were nourished there, like sharks. Only emerging and taking to the land, they were able to look after themselves. So just as fire consumes the matter from which it was kindled, its own mother and father, as the poet who inserted the marriage of, of Ceyx, I don't know how to say that, I think it's sex, but that seems kind of wrong, into Hesiod's poems said, so Anaximander, having declared that fish are at once fathers and mothers of men, urges us not to eat them. That was interesting. And then here's the next test. Here's a small note. The astronomical theory described by Hippolytus can be given a little more color. Anaximander holds that there is a circle 28 times as great as the Earth. It is like the wheel of a cart, with a hollow rim full of fire, which at a certain point reveals the fire through a mouthpiece, as through the tube of a bellows. This is the sun. That's from a Plutarch, or pseudo-Plutarch. And here's another note. The heavenly bodies are concentric, hollow wheel rims, filled with fire and profounded. They circle a stationary earth. Aristotle as to Hippolytus's account of the stability of the earth. Some say that the earth rests where it is because of the similarity, so among the ancients in Anaximander, for there is no reason why what is situated in the middle and is similarly related to the edges should move upwards rather than downwards or sideways, but it cannot move in opposite directions at the same time. So it necessarily rests where it is. That's from Aristotle. And here's yet another note. As for the infinite principle or element of all things, we have a few words from Anaximander's book preserved in a passage of Simplicius. These are the earliest surviving words of Western philosophy. Fortunately, it is uncertain, in a matter of vigorous scholarly controversy, exactly how extensive Simplicius's citation is. Quote, of those who hold that the first principle is one, moving, and infinite, Anaximander, son of Praxiades, a Milesian, who was a successor and pupil of Thales, said that the infinite is principle and element of the things that exist. He was the first to introduce the word principle. He says that it is neither water nor any other of the so-called elements, but some different infinite nature, from which all the heavens and the worlds in them come into being. And the things from which existing things come into being are also the things into which they are destroyed, in accordance with what must be, for they give justice and repatriation to one another for their injustice in accordance with the arrangement of time. He speaks of them in this way in somewhat poetic words. It is clear that he observed the change of the four elements into one another, and was unwilling to make any one of them the underlying stuff, but rather chose something else apart from them. He accounts for coming into being not by the alteration of the element, but by the separating off of the opposites by the eternal motion. And then here's another note. Simplicius explains why Anaximander's element was different from the four traditional elements, stuffs, earth, air, fire, water. He does not explain why it was unlimited or infinite. A passage in Aristotle's Physics alludes to Anaximander and lists the reasons for belief in infinitude. It is possible that one or more of these reasons originally came from Anaximander. Quote, it is with reason that they all make the infinite a principle, for it can neither exist nor no purpose, nor have any power except that of a principle. For everything is either a principle or derived from a principle. But the infinite has no principle, for then it would have a limit. Again, it is ungenerated and indestructible, and so it is a principle. For what comes into being must have an end, and there is an end to every destruction. Hence I say it has no principle itself. Sorry, hence I say it has no principle, but itself is thought to be a principle for everything else, to govern everything. And it is also the divine, for it is deathless and unperishing, as Anaximander and most of the natural scientists say. Belief in the existence of something infinite comes mainly from five considerations: from time, since this is infinite; from the division of magnitudes. Mathematicians actually use the infinite, again, because the generation and destruction will give out unless there is something infinite, from which what comes into being is subtracted. Again, because what is finite is always limited by something, so that there cannot be an ultimate limit. If one thing must always be limited by another, last and most importantly, there is something, which raises a puzzle for everyone alike. Because they do not give out in thought, numbers seem to be infinite, and so do mathematical magnitudes and the region outside the heavens. But if the region outside is infinite, then body and words also seem to be infinite. For why should there for why should they be here rather than there in the void? Hence, if the body is anywhere, it is everywhere. Again, if void and space are infinite, body too must be infinite. For with eternal things, there is no difference between being possible and being actual. And that concludes the section. Thank you for thank you so much for listening. I really hope that sort of was improved in the voicing. I've been working hard to try and speak slower, so thank you for listening. It means a lot. At any rate, that will be it for today. This is the section on Anaximander. It was pretty short this time, but hopefully the next one will be a bit longer. Maybe that's good for you. I don't know, but anyhow, thank you for listening. Um, yeah, have a good day. Bye.